So anyway, welcome to this second webinar of our LIAISE course action that are related to effective dissemination strategies. We will have the pleasure today to have the speaker for working group 4, the leader and science communication coordinator, Leonardo Picinetti, and also the co-leaders. Just before moving on to the presentation and see the outline and the different section that we will have today, just to remind you that for this webinar, we have a question and answer section. You could put all your question or doubt that you will have during the presentation, and after the session, we will solve all of them. In addition, just to remind you that this webinar is recording because they will be uploaded to our YouTube channel in order to allow more people to watch it after the live session. So in order to not lose more time and give the floor for the speaker, just to show you the outline of today, we are going to start with understanding the importance of dissemination in general, but mainly also focus on our action. Later on, we will have an overview of the different strategies that we could implement for the effective dissemination of our action. And then we will finalize with some best practice and lesson learned from this first year of our action. Also, as I mentioned, the last section, this open section for everyone will be the question and answer. So basically, just to remind you that our speaker will be Leonardo Picinetti, that is our working group for leader and also the science communication coordinator. And then we will have Juris Trujal and Apostolos Michopoulos as the two working group for leaders. So just I give the floor to the three of them to start with the presentation, mainly with the understanding the importance of dissemination. So the floor is yours.
Almudena, this is a part of Apostolos, right?
I think so, but
is Apostolos here?
Let me check. No,
because here the best practices, and I done.
Yeah. He's not here, so maybe if some of you could take also this part, it could be nice.
Okay, I can do that. No worries. So if you can, so good morning, everyone. Leonardo Picinetti, the chair for the working group 4. So I would like to present this part and of course also the strategy. So if you can go next, Almudena.
Sure.
So in terms of dissemination, this is extremely important to give an overview for any project, and in particular here when we discussing what is a dissemination. Dissemination is so important for different stakeholders. In particular, in our community, we have we call the quadruple helix model, that we have the academic community, the policymakers, but also we are targeting to specifically to the general public. And the dissemination is to describe particular in the beginning of the project the output of the results that we want to disseminate. Next one, please. So in terms of the process that we organizing, of course, from any project, the dissemination is to help the visibility to the output of the public engagement. In particular, when we talk about in the public engagement for science and innovation, because the scientists are very technical, we need to translate, in particular, the message and the output of the results to something which is not very technical. And this effective dissemination is so important from the beginning of the project to be conducted to make the difference that will be relevant to have a different impact. The impact in any project will be related to the social, political, but also the economic impact in this stage. Next one, please. So in terms of which are the most relevant aim of the dissemination, but basically, as we say that we draw attention for the government to the particular to the regulators, to the stakeholder, or anyone they are interesting to get involved in the project. In particular, as we say, that the society has become extremely relevant in the last few years because of the when we talk about in particular citizen science, and in particular in this project we did already some activity. I believe also here will be presenting some best practices about the correlation between science and communication to the public. But this is extremely important to make this gap between the science and the public in a transparent way. So what can be produced from research and what the public will be understanding what the researchers will be doing. Next one, please. So which are the most relevant goal for the dissemination? But we have a different aspect. We already mentioned the transparency, to influence the policy practices. The influence in policy practices is also be made a link also to the communication activity, to building the trust in the new partnership. But in particular, this is extremely relevant also for engagement stakeholder from the beginning. This is extremely relevant to have a fluid dissemination and raise awareness from the beginning of the project. Next one. So I would like to give an overview, more general, tailor-made to the project, and in particular, the work where we do in the cost LIAISE in a working group 4 are specifically related to the strategy. Considering now we already have several deliverables, which is public, which are on the disposal to each colleagues they want to have specifically. So what we want to do now is to give a very overview about the strategy, how we can be very effective the dissemination in this sense. Next one, please. So we are going to looking at now which are the most relevant, effective potential channel that we can use it. And in particular, what we see in a moment, we see the specific tools that we can be use thanks to the collaboration also with the cost secretariat to have a specific training in this sense. So one is the academic publication and conference. Of course, this is the most targeted to the researcher to provide through the scientific background, the output, specifically the generation of knowledge. But of course, the other dissemination channels become extremely relevant for our cost action. Social media platform, in particular, LinkedIn. We are going to have now we also have an Instagram account, which is more tailor-made to storytelling activities. But in particular, we are also very focusing on videos, to producing a specific small videos, might be for the conference, might be for the secondment, or for the virtual mobility, or for any other initiative that can be done through this cost action. But of course, the YouTube channel will be an important tool for capacity building. So for instance, the webinar that we organizing that will be uploading in the system that everyone that can also disseminating to everyone. We also thinking that storytelling will be interesting for, that is something that is come out after the COVID. It's become a more popular podcast. Podcast can be an interviews, can be very short storytelling of the experience is been done in the project. In particular, the podcast can be activated for any different podcast channel, and also very, very popular for the young generation, I would say. This has become extremely relevant, and the podcast can be in different languages. Of course, this is an important aspect that we would like to consider. workshop and training school and a stakeholder meeting and public event. We'll be organizing a regular basis in the project, and in particular, that will be related to the specific working group activity. So the working group 4 that will be supporting any workshop, training, and stakeholder meeting and public event, specifically to give the visibility of those initiatives at the local level. Next one, please. So when we talk about particular academic publication, this is extremely relevant to give some action and benefit, but particular the impact journal to be presented on an international conference. That will be extremely relevant from us to focusing on a very specific area from the sustainability, for the circular economy, for industrial symbiosis. But there will be specific, have a very interesting to organizing a calendarization of target conference event. We sharing now to the action chair the table for the activity, and I believe that this is interesting to be finalizing for each partner that is involved in the action, specifically in which event and which scientific conference will be participating, in particular which publication will be done. In particular, this could be an interesting action for collaborating with some other research projects and networks, because the cost action, one of the major objectives is also to create a network and collaboration with some of the initiative. And of course, this visibility and increasing this knowledge exchange will be one of the benefits for the academic publication and conference. Next one, please. As I said, for the social media, now the strategy from us is to have, for the wider dissemination, to have a regular post. So LinkedIn, X, the former Twitter, and the Instagram will be updated on a regular basis. We are going to have a social media post calendar initiative every week, in order that we can post in a consistent way and matter the engagement. From us is extremely important the engagement strategy. So we try to support through infographics, some videos, some article, best practices, some keyword that will be open question, in particular to producing and sharing some aspect through the YouTube channel. But the benefit from us is also to have an audience which is not like before, beyond of the academia, and they will be encouraged this interaction between public and industrial stakeholders. What we see in the last few months, the engagement rate is being increased in the social media, because there was a several events that will be involved, and in particular, one I would like to mention is the content, in particular the infographic, and the videos should be also one of the assets for the participation on the social media. Next one, please. So how we can use it, and that is extremely important for us. So first of all, we need to tag always, if you are researchers, if you're organizing an event, if you're organizing some initiative, that will be important to tag to the LIAISE cost action page. And in particular, what we are engaged in our social media account, we are going to post and update information related to the milestones, to the educational content, the tutorial, the success stories. So we would like to expanding a little bit when we have some content. Please contact also to us, so that will be interesting. So we would like to do from our side, but also will be interesting from you. If you are an individual, if you're using, for instance, LinkedIn, majority of our followers are mostly focusing on LinkedIn account. So they can be also interesting the message, very simple message, very related to the cost action that we are organizing. Next one, please. So in terms of tactics, from us is extremely important to creating an engagement tactics. Now, these engagement tactics could be for the future to organizing we call an interactive poll, for instance, question and answer, live session. There can be some relevant hashtag that can be considering for the industrial symbiosis. And then when we have not too many hashtag, so be careful about the hashtag. We should be no more than 3 or 4 hashtag could be relevant. That we can encourage to sharing like a comment. So not just to repost it empty, but also to make some positive feedback and to prompt some message. And I see that when we have this kind of rebouncing system, in particular for the engagement rate, it's become more visible to everyone. So even the event was a week ago, and there was the day after some news already in the event. If there was this engagement tactics, can be taken also 1 week, 2 weeks later to have a more visibility and to engage in the future. Next one, please. So another very important aspect is to when we call the encourage like a comment, how we can use it. So what we should have a user interrogative mark, ask question to the audience. So it's a very, I would say, appealing, be very positive in terms of the community that we are engaged. And this is extremely important to understanding this topic more in this approach, and also to using an action verbs in this way. Next one, please. For the podcast, as we said, we want to start now after September some interviews from the industrial symbiosis expert in the project, but also outside the project. So in order that we can also see an interaction between the project and the synergies and the initiative. Can be in English, can be in different languages, can be discussing some future trend and activity for the industrial symbiosis, can be benefit in this case the accessibility for the wider audience, in particular for the audio content. What I think is extremely important for the podcast is to have a very small podcast, but very clear, in particular in terms of sound, very interesting to be uploaded in the system. And also, we can do the podcast through the webinar, be recorded in a webinar, and then we can be extrapolate the audio file. Thank you. Next one, please. So, as we already mentioned about the workshop and training workshop, school in particular, we have now several initiatives will be coming soon. So from us, it will be extremely relevant to get the information on time before the event, during the event, and after the event to organizing this message. And this is hosting the training school for research and policymakers, in particular to the young industrial professional. That will be a real world case studies, will be give an opportunity through the, let's say, best practice workshop, which are in the different countries, the opportunities to understanding better the legislation, to better understanding which are the skill, which are the most relevant technologies being used for the industrial symbiosis, and in particular, the practical understanding of industrial symbiosis will be benefit, and to create we call the community practice in dedicated to the industrial symbiosis principle. This is one of the aspects that we see now at European level that's become extremely relevant to create a community practice activities. Next one, please. So for stakeholder engagement, this is extremely relevant. We had a few days ago an interesting webinar in working group 3, which is to better understanding how we engage the stakeholders. And the stakeholder probably is one of the most challenging aspects for several reasons. Particular to get involved, there is a personal contact that will be important to discussing directly from several meetings, but the consultation will be extremely important for the future. After mapping the stakeholder activity will be extremely relevant through the dissemination action to have a regular information to the stakeholder, to have a we call in-out information. So the stakeholder, they should receive a regular information for the project, but particular, we should also receiving a regular feedback by the stakeholder. This is one of the important aspects that we should redefining clearly the dissemination strategy. Because if we see that there is a problem of lack of, I would say, information that will be important from us to understanding where we should improving our dissemination strategy. And of course, there is an ownership, a commitment, and that will be applicable for any research outcome we should be considering. Considering that in industrial symbiosis, we have different topics that is in our industrial symbiosis community is become quite wide. So will be extremely relevant when we talk about some specific stakeholder, what kind of clear message we want to give to them. Next one, please. So regarding the outreach in a public event, like the Science Cafe, here we will be presenting some example. There will be an engagement in particular to even including a new method. There is now, for instance, a trend by a researcher, not just to give a short presentation to the general public, but also to have a fun, in particular with the school, with the education activity to improving this public awareness. We have now the in September, for instance, the Research Night initiative, which could be also interesting for the post-action. The Research Night is an initiative at European level to focusing on science communication to the public. So we can also give to the public some talks. We can also organizing some engagement. You see from here, there is also the Lego Serious Play that is extremely interesting model that we can also using specifically to the student to better understanding some research area. Of course, there will be the outreach and the public event will be engage media from the beginning. And I think this is also important when we organizing some local public event to have some communication expert locally that will be involved from the beginning to have a understanding. Sometimes also from the journalism's point of view is not easy to understanding the topic. So we need to translate in a simple way to the journalist also the topics that can be created in an article, can be created a blog in this case. Next one, please. In terms of synergies, now we have so many initiatives at national, regional, and international level about industrial symbiosis, and we do believe that this initiative will be extremely important to create we call a clustering plan. What we discuss also in Alicante was quite useful is to creating a project, let's say cluster initiative that we can see which are the most relevant project at the European level. We can approach how we can work with them in terms of to have some joint initiative and this is interesting in particular to expanding the networks. This is an interesting, in particular for an ongoing project, but also for joint future initiative like project funding that will be synergies at the national and the regional level. But this is a cross-disciplinary innovation. What we say about the industrial symbiosis will be important in the future. Next one, please. So which are the most relevant challenge and solution from us? Is extremely important that the keyword that we would like to stress is the clearness and in particular the clarity and the consistency. So those keywords are extremely important to have a very simple message, but to be very consistent. And consistency is so important, in particular for any message that we want to organize. Of course, working with a different stakeholder audience in industrial symbiosis is very difficult to, or coming from technical jargon to accessible to the public, for instance. But the solution is to maintaining this message very simple and to simplify and understanding better what we are now in terms of policy, in terms of technologies, in terms of benefit. And of course, it will be interesting to see which are the scenarios that we are working on at the moment, because from us will be extremely important to have this feedback specifically for the new solution. Next one, please.
I think it's the last one from your side, Leonardo. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now we give the floor to Giri to go for the best practice and lesson learned section.
Thank you very much, Almudena and Leonardo, for the word and previous presentation. So my name is Jiří Strouhal, and I will go through this section. So basically, I will discuss here some best practices in terms of effective dissemination, engagement, and as Leonardo already have mentioned, also I will give here some example on the case of Science Cafe. So if I can ask you for the next slide, please.
Sure.
So basically, in terms of effective dissemination, always the plan of dissemination shall contain the following information: why we are doing so, so what's the purpose, what are those key dissemination activities, and of course, what already Leonardo mentioned, who is our target audience, because afterwards it's important to do it through proper channels and tools. Timing, it's always important, and last but not least are also those KPIs, so indicators to measure the efficiency or performance of our dissemination. So next slide, please. So in terms of why and who, so first of all, of course, our target is to inform and raise awareness about our LIAISE cost action, to facilitate the knowledge transfer, enable the acceptance, support, uptake, and drive change. And of course, our target is to create a collaborative environment fostering industrial symbiosis and sustainable practices. In terms of whom, so we are supposed to, of course, deal with the identification of the proper stakeholders, who is basically our target audience, what are their information needs and preferences, because afterwards we can choose the proper channel of our communication. So basically, from this perspective, the stakeholder analysis, it's kind of exercise where stakeholders are identified, grouped, and assessed in terms of their interest, importance for uptaking the content and further dissemination. Next, please. So in terms of how and when, as we know, we have several social media, LinkedIn, very efficient in terms of those stories, Instagram, where those flash information, and also we have, of course, Facebook and other social medias in terms of meetings. So last one in terms of physical was in Alicante, but the next one, if I remember well, on September would be Alexander's work group 1 meeting. So this shall be, of course, properly announced and promoted. In terms of digital meetings, so it might be a webinar like this, or we can use YouTube channel for example, those webinars, storytelling, it's quite popular, best practices, and also either through YouTube or different platform, there might be done some podcasts, because afterwards it's easy to hear it when you are traveling somewhere, so you can listen to podcast about some topical issue. And last but not least, we needn't to underestimate traditional media. I guess from this perspective, it was quite helpful. So the interview in Alicante with, I'm not sure it was the local TV from Yekla or Murcia, where the interviewee was here, Leonardo Piccinetti. And of course, the general newspapers might be interesting in terms of flash information as well, plus, of course, public or releases of or press releases of the results of our action as well. So next slide, please. In terms of those KPIs, because everything shall be measured and somehow evaluated, especially considering that my background is accounting, so I trust only 2 figures. So in terms of KPIs, of course, first of all those activities shall be somehow measurable. So from this perspective, it shall be somehow represented numerically and analyzed over time to be able to identify those trends, best practices, pitfalls, etc. Of course, it shall be easy, because afterwards it would be more understandable. Of course, the methodology shall be repeatable, sources shall be available, it shall be up to date, so it shall be timely, reliable always. So we have to have some trustable sources in this online analytics world. But last but not least, and this is really important, that all those KPIs shall be controllable, because this might be the potential problem that what's under our control, it's number of our posts. So it's not such a big problem to post whatever on LinkedIn, Instagram, but question is about the target audience or stakeholders. Do anyone care about the results and flash news from our co-section? So the problem afterwards is, of course, the number of viewers, and this is for sure not directly under our control. So from this perspective, the identification of benchmarks and the analysis of targets is, or both of them are crucial as well. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in terms of that effective community or communication strategy, next, please. Actually, this was, if I remember well, from Leonardo, a nice presentation from Brussels, a meeting of dissemination group leaders. So first of all, we are supposed to identify a focus area. So what's our goal? For example, that environmental monitoring, waste reduction, community engagement, to create that industrial symbiosis, establish partnerships. So of course, it's about the building of networks, even through those contacting of previous cost or even future cost actions, because even for next year, I can see there one cost action focusing also on industrial symbiosis, or particularly also to circular economics. So also to find out those proper industries, groups, academic institutions, and of course, because it's always about policies, so government agencies, and of course those consulting companies as well. Pilot project design is also important, so to develop some, let's say, live small-scale citizen science project aligned with industrial symbiosis. So, for example, here we can see the community-based air quality monitoring program near industrial areas. Afterwards, of course, to provide training and resources, because these tools are needed for reliable data collection, implement data management systems for storing and analyzing data, course, especially these days, system and data shall be secured, easy to use, and of course, they are supposed to support collaborative analysis. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, community engagement activities shall be organized, so workshop, other events. For example, afterwards I will speak a little bit more about those science cafes, discussions to build awareness and foster connection between industry and the community or even local community, monitor and evaluate. So we are supposed to track the progress, collect feedback, expand and scale the project. So in case, of course, that the pilot succeeds, so we may involve more industries, more communities. Also, we may search for new partnership, and of course, everything it's about money. So also to gain some new funding sources to be able to support the growth of the scope of the project, of the action. Advocate for policy changes. So of course we have to engage to a certain extent the policymakers, because they are also those one who are changing those legislations. So they are supposed to be aware of our results or what we are doing, because afterwards they may foster all those changes. And last but not least, of course, share our findings to broader audience. So of course, those policy papers, reports, presentations, social media. Of course, lots of us are from universities as researchers. So of course, those journal publications in high-ranked journals. So this, of course, help to spread awareness and, of course, may encourage further participation in these citizen science initiatives. Next one, please. One more. So in terms of the hosting of that science coffee, and of course some, let's say, because I'm Czech guy, so pub or wine, whatever, how you call this model. So in terms of that science coffee or cafe, what it is, basically it's the informal way of gathering people who are willing and able to discuss topics related to certain scientific topic. And of course, we are supposed to get some citizens involved. Afterwards, what might be the form of this science coffee? Technically, it might be some lecture or moderated discussion, but even it might be kind of roundtable. So why to organize it? So of course, to provide the community to learn about industrial symbiosis, increase visibility of results of our action, attract new audiences, and of course, to create environment for mutual learning. And afterwards, of course, where to hold it. So of course, in case of cafe, might be of course some cafeteria, bars, restaurants, wine cellars, in case we would like to deal with wine, or when we have the management committee meeting in Alicante or near Yekla, so it might be some winery restaurant. Bookstores might be, of course, used as well. But always we need to think about what's our target audience there, if they would be willing to go there, if they are willing to deal with that one. So always it's about the demographic factor, who would be our attendees, which kind of generation, or what are their expectations, and afterwards to correlate it with the reality. So from this perspective, always, last but not least, we have to deal somehow also with the proper audio-visual equipment, because in case it's nothing available within that venue, we have to bring our new one. So next slide, please. So how to hold it? Basically, the point is that there is no some pre-defined agenda for science coffee. So always it's about our decision. What are those needs? What are the venue? Or what's the venue? What was already mentioned. Of course, time limitation. Always it wouldn't be too long. 1 hour. It's, let's say, the optimum and general format of Science Cafe. And of course, what are targets and program goals? So what, on the other hand, very important, the atmosphere there shall be a really relaxed one. So no press, no stress. So next slide, please. Actually, within the next 3 slides, I will focus on those, let's say, 3 possibilities for example, what to hold. So first one, it's, let's say, kind of more or less direct presentation like today's one. So kind of lecture with question and comments. So for example, here you can see the agenda for 2 hours. So first one, of course, welcome and introduction. So the organizer will introduce the program and the major speakers. So for this one, always you need 5 to 10 minutes, because those first 5 minutes, mostly you are waiting for more and more guests who are coming to that event. In terms of the presentation, 30-40 minutes, it's, let's say, something what somebody is really willing to listen afterwards. If it's longer afterwards, the lecturer or speaker, he might have some problem to attract the audience. But because it's the science coffee, it's not about giving the information, or it's not one-way information, but it's about also Q&A, question answers, and the general discussion. So this might take, again, 40-60 minutes. And of course, last part is the farewell, thanks to the speaker, and end of the program. Next one, please, would be about the moderated discussion. So, for example, this is the agenda for 1 hour. So again, general welcome to the audience and brief introduction of the speaker. Speaker just will do kind of elevator pitch. So really within 5 minutes, some teaser to his or her work, and to inspire and support the discussion. So that moderated question and answers session will be, again, that up to 1 hour. So it's really about that interaction between the crowd and the speaker. And if I may ask for the last version, last option, kind of roundtable discussion, let's say here might be the average of 90 minutes. So again, some brief welcoming presentation, kind of short talk about 25 to 30 minutes, then some short break, roundtable discussion between the audience members around themselves within individual tables. So for this one, of course, works larger cafeteria or some closed part of the restaurant. And in terms of Q&As, I guess 30 minutes might be sufficient to discuss those questions from those separate table groups. And last but not least, again, that farewell, thanks to the speaker, and of course the end of the program. Next slide, please, will be about some general useful tips about science cafes. So first of all, of course, it shall be properly promoted. So on our LIAISE website, in technically, in case it would be realized through your institution, of course, may work pretty well that it would be announced, of course, through your websites as well. Post it again through our social media, particularly through your social media. Always, it might be nice to link it somehow to Outlook or different calendar. Flyers always might be nice. So I guess from this perspective, working group 4 may help. And of course, to have some proper list of relevant attendees. Within the next slide, there would be some agenda or poster of one science cafe, which was held by different project. You can see it's Marie Curie action many years ago. So here you can see the general structure of that flyer, when, where it would be held, some context and more information about that event, and of course about the organizer. Yeah, so about Science Coffee, who will present the topic, what's the major agenda, and afterwards, of course, there might be some information about, for our case, LIAISE project, and of course some general involved information on how to register. In terms of the second flyer or second information, if I may shift the word to Leonardo Piccinetti, because I remember that in Alicante he had a perfect presentation of this Lego bricks.
Yeah. Shall I say something about
Yeah,
that?
if you may, it would be great.
This is a very innovative approach to using also for stakeholder engagement workshop. Translate a very simple way with Lego Serious Play, which is a methodology has been using now for the student, in particular the Ellen MacArthur Foundation they're using for the circular economy approach. But that could be interesting to when we have an informal workshop to organizing a session with a Lego Serious Play. This is you need to have a facilitator, which is give some instruction, in particular, some question to be raised regarding the industrial symbiosis. And of course, this is interesting to presenting the work when it's been done in a different groups. And I think this is interesting to work with a manual creativity rather than to just discuss and to drafting by writing something. Here is more, we go to the practical aspect, more to the visual aspect, to translate maybe the industrial symbiosis concept, maybe especially for the student, will be extremely relevant because it's been done so far for a long time now, the Lego Serious Play, but I think it could be a good advantage also to engage, the young people, in particular for the engagement of the industrial symbiosis.
Thank you, Leo, very much. I guess that the next on-site meeting shall be in Legoland also to create to do something with Lego bricks jointly. And as Almudena already shifted to next slide, so there is already that Q&A section. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Let's go for the question section. I don't know if there is someone. I see that Ivar Thecker want to talk. He has the hands up. So maybe I allow you to reactivate your microphone. So please, the floor is yours. Ivar. Okay, maybe so. Maybe it's horse grown and he don't pay attention on that. There is no question on the question and answer section, but I don't know if someone has any question on any comment to the presentation. I would like to thanks again to Leonardo and to Yuri for the useful presentation. Just it is our idea with this webinar is to give you an overview of the different possibilities that you have, and also the importance of dissemination, not only for LIAISE action, it's for all the projects and all the research that you are doing. So basically, this information could be transferred or even to go for other kind of projects. So please take into account also the organization of this kind of science cafe and other kind of event could be very useful for you for increase your know-how in the research world, maybe in your city, in your or even inside your organization, especially for the university researchers, because there is a lot of people inside. So it could be very useful if you could do something different and something very innovative and attract a lot of people. So I think that there is no question. So I'm going to close this webinar. Once again, thank you for the speaker, but mainly thank you for all the people that have attended this meeting. I know that we are very busy before our um, summer break. So thank you again for all the presenters here and all the attendants. And this recording webinar will be available in our website and also in our YouTube channel in some weeks more left. So just thank you again and have a nice day.